Oh dear. Bro 6LX has gone for a swim, and I suspect that she's gone for a swim some time ago and she's been allowed to sit. So we're going to start anyway and dismantle her and see what we can salvage. I can't promise that we'll restore this engine, but some of the parts might be useful. Here, the chain tensioner, that's beyond use, but we have plenty of them. Front pulley, well, at least it's not broken. They very often are. Japsco pump, that could be okay depending on what kind of impeller it has. I suspect this was an improvised oil cooler, not the traditional. That is, I think, a 203 alternator. That'll be scrap. Injector pump tops are pretty sad. It's unlikely we'll be able to salvage those. Coffee pot oil filter looks okay. This is a Bowman heat exchanger. Possibly okay. Don't see any major corrosion on it, and that's the kind of standard Bowman bracket for it. The important thing is that the sump looks okay. Don't see any major problems there. And the end plate is okay. She will of course be thoroughly seized inside. Now, what's going on here? There's no nuts on any of the studs, the very rear of the sump. So how could this be? Could it be that somebody has made a start to restore this engine or salvage this engine, and then they've been interrupted? I really don't know. She's starting to look better already. Isn't that amazing? And isn't it wonderful what a wee bit of oil will do? Good penetrating oil. Now, what have we discovered? Okay, somebody has bypassed the oil cooler circuit here for some reason. I don't know why. We can tell that this engine's from a bus because it's got the typical emergency cut-off lever here, which is working fine. And that'll be brass inside. Poor oil alternator doesn't look very healthy. I would say that'll be going in the bin. Somebody rigged up some kind of a dipstick there, which caused me all sorts of grief trying to get the sump bolts out. We can see here again, this confirms it's from a bus because this was used as a mount here. Injector pump as well seized. But we'll keep going. I think our next objective will be to try and get the water rails off. Now this is sad here. This very often happens. The water rail is broken here. The top water rail is broken just here. But not to worry. The exhaust manifold is missing. The inlet manifold is not too bad at all. The rocker covers are going to give us some grief because that'll all soda blast okay. But the problem is getting these studs out. That's the problem, because they'll be more or less welded in there. You've got a mild steel bolt, and you've got an aluminium rocker cover, and you've got the similar metals, so it'll corrode like hell. They'll be well and truly seized in there, but we'll get them out some way. Now, I think I explained that one of the challenges I feared here is getting the water rails off, because again we've got the similar metals. We've got an alloy water lane and mild steel studs, and you've got heavy corrosion in here. Normally these are very difficult to get off, but lo and behold, I took off the nuts I put in my nail bar. And up it comes. Isn't that amazing? I've got good days and I have bad days. Today I'm having a good day. But I'd like you to note that these nuts here that fit on here are 5/16. But somebody has fitted on 5/16 threaded nuts, but the spanner size is actually metric. Isn't that disgusting? You have to use a 12mm socket to get these off. Horrible. Please don't do that. You can buy proper 5/16 Whitworth and BSF nuts. You can buy 200 of them for really very little. It's not worth skimping on the nuts. Please don't do that. Just before we leave the water rail, note that you can't take either rail off separately. You have to take them off together. And the reason why you have to take them off together is because you have to put them on together. So there's no point in taking off, even trying to take one off together, taking one off separately. You have to take them off as a pair and put them on as a pair. You can waste a lot of time trying to do otherwise. You'll notice that I haven't oiled the head nuts. You'll see they are still really quite rusty. And there's a specific reason for this. What will happen, I hope, is that whenever I put a socket on those and try unscrewing them, the whole stud will come up. And that's an advantage on occasions like this, because it means that the heads will then come up much easier off the block. Now, notice the spider's webs on here. Really quite copious spider's webs. Now, my understanding is there are no spiders in the sea. So this engine has obviously been out of salt water for some time. Again, notice the square corner on the head here. That's a clear indication that this is an LXB engine. And you'll also notice, I think, no, I can't quite show you at the minute. Oh, I can, just there. You'll see just there that the exhaust valve is not threaded. So this is definitely an LXB engine and not an LX. Something else to notice here is, notice that on the front head, the rubbers here are not split, whereas on the back head, they are split. So this means that somebody at some stage has had the back head off this engine, because you have to, whenever you put on new rubbers, you have to split them to get them on. So this is really very interesting. I would love to know the history of this engine. Again, before we leave the head nuts, I will sometimes even put a wee spot of weld on there to encourage the whole stud to come out. I don't know if I'll have to do that on this occasion or not. I somehow doubt it. As you can see, on the starboard side of this engine, I've got all the head nuts off. That includes the little 3/8 nuts there in the center. They did give me some bother. So my objective, I've also got the center ones off, the long studs along here. My next objective then is to get the nuts off that are in behind these nameplates here. But really, in order to do that, I'm really best to take off the injector pump first. Now, that's quite a big job. So I suspect it may be some time before you'll be hearing from me. Backwater rail coming off. And it's not in such bad condition. It's okay, I think. We'll be able to salvage that okay. Now, I've just set one of the injector pipes back on again to illustrate something for you. You'll notice that the injector pipe goes over the leak back pipe here. So in order to get that leak back pipe off, you have to take off all the injector pipes first, which is a pain in the neck. But that's the way of it. On the LW engines, the leak back pipe is on the outside of the rocker covers, so that problem doesn't exist. Gardner, in their wisdom, decided, and I think it was a good idea, to move the leak back pipe inside underneath the rocker covers, where it's not so exposed to the weather and isn't attacked by corrosion so readily. By the way, I think it's a good idea to remove these castellated nuts here before you attack the leak back pipe, because with the castellated nuts in place, it's just that much. It's much more difficult to get the spanner in here. So it's better to take those off first. Okay, so getting the outside nuts off is easy, but these nuts that are in here, you need this special tool, and it pops in here through that window, and we can get the nuts off. Before you do that, you have to take off the push rods. I'm afraid these are the push rods. Do you think they'll be of any trade-in value? I somewhat doubt it. I think I know where they're going to go. So we can now take a look down here, and you'll see all the components that we've gathered so far. So this box is filling up, and the engine is being stripped. We're making progress. We're going to attempt now we're going to bring in the forklift, and we're going to try and lift this block up. And lay the come up with us. Sometimes it can be a bit of a battle, but we'll have a go and see how we get on. Okay, so here we are, and the heads are coming up. No problem. This one is late. So we use the forklift now to lift her off clean, and we go on to the next one. That's it. Okay, I can put my finger in here, and I can feel the bores, and I don't need a micrometer, I don't need any fancy equipment. I can tell that there's wear in those bores. It's not too bad, but I think if we restore this engine at all, we'll have put new liners in here. You can have a look down in here and you'll see how bad the pistons are. You just look down there into the bores, you'll see the pistons are really, they're completely rusted in there. They'll be welded in there with rust. So we're going to have to take the sump off, drop off the end caps, take out the crankshaft, and push the pistons out from the top. We can use our press to do that. Now, somebody has put on this bracket to hold the Bowman heat exchanger. In order to get it off, as you can see, there's a nut in there, but there's also a nut in here. In order to get at that nut, I need to take off this pipe here. Now, this is a difficult enough job because, again, these set screws, the set screws on here grow into the aluminium and they're very difficult to get off. But because this water pump cover is broken, here, look, I might as well just get my angle grinder and cut in here, and that'll take that copper pipe off. I want to save that copper pipe if I can. In order to take off the injector pump, we have to remove this this clamp here. There's one at the front and this one at the back. And as usual, I suspect that these studs, here are going to be really quite well corroded. The danger is if they ring, that's the danger. So we may have to apply some heat there to avoid that happening. Notice a little bit of the oil is spilt out here. Now that oil looks to me as if it's And in fact, it's certainly emulsified with water. So I'm hoping whoever it was didn't run this engine for too long with the oil in that condition.